Hi guys, it's Amber. Welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, then welcome to the madhouse. If you're not, then thank you so much for coming back. This is episode 6 of my fertility episodes, so we are now a third of the way through, which is crazy, really. I didn't actually think that I'd get to episode 6, but I'm really glad we are. So yeah, we're a third of the way through. So between now and New Year, week after New Year, every Saturday these are coming to you. Those of you that haven't been here before, hi, I'm Amber. I talk a lot of rubbish, but thank you so much for coming. Today is definitely going to be shorter. I can promise you that because I have to go to work. So my shifts this week have been all over the place, which has been an absolute nightmare, to be honest. I've not been on my usual shift pattern. Everything's changed a little bit. And so trying to find time to actually sit down and film has been really hard. So I do apologise, but I'm going to be straightening my hair the whole way through this because as soon as I've finished, I've got to pretty much get up and go. So without further ado, I'm going to carry on straightening my hair as of now. So this week's episode is one that I think a lot of you that actually watch these have wanted for a while. I wasn't going to do it this early on, but I did put out a little poll on my Insta the other day about which episode to do. I had a few conversations with people about getting asked when they're having children and whether or not that is something that they want me to cover this week, or whether or not they want me to cover jealousy. And given that last week's episode was all about how infertility feels, I do think that jealousy probably follows on from that quite nicely. So funnily enough, that was the one that came back. It was quite a close call, but more people went for this. So this is what I'm going to be doing today. If you're a hairdresser, I'm sorry, so is my husband, and I don't care. I straighten my hair with. I don't use a comb. So yeah, that is something that came back that most people wanted to see, and therefore that is what I'm doing. So this is going to be all about the jealousy that comes around trying to conceive, around infertility, and I think this is quite a big issue. This is something that everybody feels, and I don't believe anyone who tells me that they don't. So this is what we're going to be doing today. So grab your cup of tea, get yourself comfy, let's sit down and let's talk all things vagina. I'm not going to be joining you on the cup of tea front today, unfortunately. I am on strict instructions to be drinking water. I am really dehydrated. I don't drink anywhere near as much water, and when we start IVF, I'm going to need to be drinking between 3 and 5 litres of water a day, and right now I struggle to kind of drink 3 sips a day, and so this is kind of my lead up to it. I love this bottle. It tells me how much water I should be, nearly burnt myself. It tells me how much water I should be drinking in a day. And it's just fantastic, really. And then it has a cool little motto, so why be moody when you can shake your booty, or shake your pineapples as I prefer to say. So yeah, I'm going to be drinking my water today instead of my cup of tea. And you may have noticed I seem really bright and light, and you can actually see my face. And that is because my darling husband got me an early birthday present and replaced my ring light. The one I had, I have put away, but it was literally like this big. And this room doesn't get exactly a lot of light into it, so I always felt like I looked really dingy, and whenever I was editing it, I was really annoyed at how rubbish my face looked. And I think when I was doing my makeup one the other day, it just looked horrific. So I have this huge, honestly, it's huge, it's bigger than me, and my friend came around and we just tried to put it all together, and it blinds me. So if by week 18 I am blind, you know why. Okay, I hope you're all really comfy. I seem to have a lot of energy today, so I'm sorry if I'm talking really quick, and I'm sorry if I'm not looking at the camera. Like I say, I really need to get ready. But this is an episode that needs to be spoken about. So this week, that's what we're going to do. So I hope you're all sitting really comfortably. I hope you're all okay. So, jealousy, oh my goodness me. I think now I'm a lot better with jealousy than I was. Especially when I was first diagnosed as infertile, but when we were trying to conceive, I got really bad. And it's little things. I think, like, you know, everyone feels it. Everyone feels that jealousy or that envy. And I think for me it was very much like I'd walk down the street and I'd see somebody pregnant, and I'm not joking, I would count how many pregnant people I would see in a day. It was always way too many. And I think that was maybe the hardest bit, that you would always look at them and I would find myself staring, and I wouldn't even be staring at the woman, I would be staring at the bump, and oh God, I hope nobody ever caught me. But you do, when you're looking at other people, you sit there and you wonder, like, why is that happening for her and not me? Like, what did she do that I didn't? And you always have that wondering feeling, like you're never going to get the answer, because you didn't do anything and neither did she. Like, you both had sex and there's only one way to do that. So it's really hard not to blame yourself, but especially when you are not in the early stages, but you've kind of passed the point of, okay, maybe it's just taking time, and you're realising that there might be an issue, then I think it's really hard. It's really hard being around pregnant people, and I think in your personal life you can avoid it, but in day-to-day, just general life, you can't. And I think, you know, I wrote an article the other day, I wrote a blog post, on my blog, amberinateacup.com, and I wrote a post about the loneliness of infertility, and for me I felt like that was a really raw post, because I did talk about the fact that, you know, you see these pregnant people in the street and you do kind of sit and stare at them and wonder, like I said, what they did that you didn't. And it is really hard not to blame yourself, but I think on top of that, you can't avoid it. I think the day I found out that I was infertile, so the day I had my laparoscopy, I woke up and as soon as I went on my phone, the first thing I saw was a group chat with work, where somebody I work with had just had a baby on the same day. So the first thing I saw on my phone was a newborn baby, and that I found really hard, and I literally couldn't speak to that bloke for months. I just couldn't look at him, because all I'd ever hear was about his child, and I found that, at that point, I found it really hard to be happy for them. I think another thing was around Christmas, and we'd gone to some friends for a bit of a get-together with everyone. Usually I'm like, no, we've got to kind of either be early or we've got to be bang on time. Whereas this time I didn't care that my husband wanted to watch the second half of a football game, because I knew that the people whose house we were going to, their best friends had not long, they'd had IVF, but they'd not long had babies so they had triplets, and I was really worried that they were going to be there, because I just didn't want to be around it. It was still only, I think, only about 8 weeks after I'd been diagnosed, and I was really jealous, and I was really upset, and that particular week I'd had a really bad week, and I'd really struggled with it all. So I texted my friend and just kind of said, I need you to tell me if they're there, so I could mentally prepare myself, because I knew that if I got there and they were there and I didn't know about it, I'd either be really rude and not speak to them, or I'd just be in the toilet crying. They weren't there. However, before I got there, there was a pregnancy announcement, and my friend had asked that nobody mentions it when we get there, because she didn't want me to be upset. She knew I had a really bad week, and she rang me about a month later to tell me. And the jealousy there really does impact your friendships. Like, I know that some people in that room didn't really understand that, whereas others did. And thankfully the couple were absolutely fine with it, and you know, they didn't mention it to me. But I think I found myself getting really every time I heard a pregnancy announcement, I'd sit and cry. And it just felt like everybody was getting pregnant. And people are always getting pregnant. You know, it doesn't matter where you are or what you do, you can't escape it. Somebody is always pregnant. I mean, sure, go to like a little nun's convent or something and then maybe you won't come across a pregnant woman, but realistically, that's not what we're doing. So you can't, you physically cannot avoid pregnant people. And I think from about 18 months into us trying, that was when the jealousy really got me. And I'd not want anything to do with anyone, and anyone that had children I didn't really want to be around. And then eventually I kind of got over that and I started being okay with it, and I had friends, you know, my friends were having children and family members were having children, and it was always a bit of a blow when you heard about it, but it didn't really bother me because I was still convinced that it was going to happen for us. And then when I started getting to the point of, okay, this isn't going to happen for us, and then it was confirmed, oh my God, I could not be around children. I think even now I'm quite positive about it, but there's only like one friend whose family really, whose children I can actually be around, and that's really strange. My hair is finished. My husband decided that it was a really good time to come in and talk to me, so I finished my hair and then I figured I'd finish this. So what I was saying was there's only really one set of kids that I don't mind being around, and I know that's really backwards, but I don't know, I can't even explain it. Whereas other friends that have kids, I seem to have not cut off I think is the wrong word, but distanced myself from, and not even intentionally. Like I think I've just, I don't know, I never know. I'll make plans with them and then on that day Aunt Flo has arrived, or I'm just not in the best headspace to be around them, and so I never seem to follow through with it. So it makes me feel like a really awful friend and I feel really guilty for it, but that is realistically it. I'm so jealous when I'm around them, so that's not really ideal. But then I think, you know, one thing where I get really jealous and really angry over, if you like, is when people have accidents and people accidentally get pregnant, and I think, well, did you use contraception? No, it wasn't an accident then, was it? The only time I'm forgiving of the word accident is when somebody is on contraception and they still somehow get pregnant. But then that winds me up even more and I get even more jealous because I think, you are super fertile and I'm not fertile at all. So that's when I get really wound up, I think, and I get really jealous. And I think it's just one of those things. I honestly think it is something that everybody is going to feel. Whenever you were in this situation, you are going to feel jealous in one way or another. And there's no getting around that. I think when you can't have something but everybody else seems to have it, you are going to get jealous. You are going to feel envy. If you don't feel jealousy, you are going to feel envy. And I think, like at work, we had 3 pregnant women at once and they were all at work when I was at work all the time, and I was just surrounded by them, and you just feel jealous. Like, I would find myself looking at that bump thinking, why is that not me? And get myself really worked up. I remember being at work and somebody on my team announced that they were having a baby, and I went into the toilet and cried. And it's not because I'm not happy for them. Like I've said before, I wouldn't wish what I have been through on my worst enemy. I would not wish infertility on anyone. And now I do try, and when I see pregnant people, I do kind of try and just think, I am so glad they've not had to go through this, and I am hope for them that everything is how it should be, and that everything with this pregnancy and the birth is easy. And that is how I now try and think, because Jealousy is horrible. It's the ugliest trait ever, and it really is. Like, now I have to try and think, okay, yes, they're pregnant, but there is not a finite amount of pregnancies in the world. Jill up the road getting pregnant doesn't mean that I have less chance. I already have no chance of getting pregnant on my own, and I think even before my diagnosis, there isn't a finite number of pregnancies. Just because she's pregnant, it's not taking away your chance, and you shouldn't feel angry towards her for something that she can't control and that you can't control. And that is kind of the outlook I try and have now. I try and just be happy for them. Of course I feel sad for me, and of course there are times where somebody else is pregnant and I have to kind of take a back seat a little bit and just take myself off for 5 minutes or so, and just think, God, I wish that was me, and have my upset. But I try and turn that jealousy is a negative emotion. There are lots of negative emotions, but I try and just turn that jealousy into sadness, just sadness for myself, all happiness for them. But I think anyone who is friends with you or friends with me knows that pregnancy announcements are always going to be something that is a little bit difficult. They aren't going to be something where I am jumping for joy. I think a friend of ours told us that they were pregnant a couple of weeks ago, and I was really happy for them, and I reacted like I had just been told that I had won the lottery. And I think that's one thing you have got to be careful of. You have got to be careful that you don't overreact, because I think I look like a bit of a numpty. But to me, that's 1,000 times better than bawling my eyes out and sobbing. So there is progress. I think, like I said at the beginning of the video, it is normal to feel jealous, especially when it comes to infertility. It is normal. So the worst thing that you can do is make yourself feel guilty for having those feelings. You're not the only one that feels them. In fact, as I said, if you don't feel them, I think you're more of a minority. You're not alone with that, but one thing that you do need to do is kind of give yourself time, give yourself that space, and allow those feelings. Because if you manifest all these feelings and you just try and keep them locked up and pretend they don't exist, it's going to have more of an adverse effect than allowing you to have those feelings. So I think, you know, with strangers, don't walk up to a stranger and tell her how you're feeling, because that's a bit weird. But if your friend or your sister or somebody close to you is pregnant, be happy for them. Try to be happy for them. But you can be sad for you, but be happy for them, because they've not had to go through this, and you wouldn't want them to have to go through that, because that's not fair. But if they are that good of a friend, they will understand when you say to them, I am really happy for you, but it has brought up some sad feelings for me, and so I'm sorry if I am a little bit distant during this time. You know, your best friend is the mute button on Facebook, on Instagram, so you don't have to see people that are serial baby posters. You can mute them. They're not going to know that you've done that. If they are close to you, then every now and again, just when you're having a good day, if you like, just go on there and have a little bit of scroll through, so anything important you don't miss. But realistically, if you're that good of friends, if it's that important, they'll have told you. But you can mute them. There is no harm in that. Baby showers. I find this a bit of a difficult one, because I think if you don't want to go, you shouldn't have to go, and you shouldn't feel guilty for not going. If you don't feel like you're going to be able to face it, then do yourself a favour and don't go. I do think if it's someone really close to you, try and make the effort, but if you can't, and I know that in the early stages of my infertility and when I was first told that I couldn't, I know that I really wouldn't have been able to go, and so I think that is fine. And I think as long as you tell them that, if they are that good of a friend, they will understand. And honesty is the best policy all the time, and I think you have got to be really open about it and say to them, look, I'm really sorry, but I don't think I can do it, and it's just not a very good time for me. You understand, they will understand what you're going through, and well, no, they won't necessarily understand, but they should listen to you. And as I said, if they don't listen to you and they don't take your feelings into consideration on that, then I don't think they're really a very good friend anyway. If it's not someone that is immediate family, or it's not one of your closest friends, then I don't see the harm in telling a little white lie. If you're not necessarily comfortable in saying, I'm really sorry, but I'm really jealous of you, so I don't want to come. Don't say that. There's no harm in telling a little white lie about why you can't come. You know, you could make something up, as long as it's believable. But don't feel bad about saying no to them. Baby showers are really hard, so you don't have to be, you're not obliged to go, and don't feel guilty for not going, is ultimately what I'm trying to say. Oh, my stomach rumbled then, sorry if you can hear that. Cool, I'm hungry. But yeah, don't feel guilty about not going. Do yourself a favour. If you're not okay to go, then don't go. And at the end of the day, if you're just going to be there and be really miserable and be taking yourself off to the toilets to cry for 5 minutes, that's not a nice atmosphere for anybody who you're around. So saying no isn't always the worst thing to do. Another thing I would really suggest doing is getting professional help. I think I am still on a waiting list, and I can't really afford to go privately at the minute because we're paying for private IVF, which is really quite ironic and a bit of a catch-22. But seeing somebody who doesn't know you, doesn't know your situation, and sitting there and pouring your heart out, I think is only a good thing. I have had counselling for multiple different things over my life, and it has always really helped me. I had some counselling when I was at school, and that went on for quite a few years, and then I've had private counselling twice since then, and I think it is so beneficial, because if you find the right counsellor and you can sit there and you can really vent and really get everything out, there is nothing to be lost. You are only going to gain from this. And if you go to one person and you think, I don't feel comfortable with you, then you can find somebody else. There are people who specialise in this type of thing, and by sitting down and getting all that out, you are really, you're opening up without upsetting anyone. And I think sometimes all it takes is getting that off your chest. They don't need to understand. You don't need to sit and, sometimes you will sit and vent to your partner and your partner won't really get it, and they will still not, they will try and be a support system for you, and they are, but they know you, they know the situation, and it involves them too. You will sit and talk to a friend who has no idea, and as I've said before, that friend will just try and fix and say unhelpful things. Or they can't really do anything. All they can do is give you a hug, which is great, but the dogs are going mental again. But at the same time, sitting and talking to someone who doesn't know you and just telling them how you feel, who can't judge you, who is paid not to judge you, is brilliant. So generally, I think getting help is one of the best things you can possibly do. And that is one thing I really love about Instagram. The amount of people I talk to on Instagram who are in a similar situation to and I get so much from that. I just don't feel like I'm on my own as much. And I've made some good friends on there. So I think that's one thing that is really beneficial. You just find somebody to talk to who doesn't know you as such. So yeah, get help. Like, really do. Because I think, especially with getting these jealous feelings out, you can say everything nasty that you want to say to this person who doesn't know you, instead of the person who it's going to upset. You know, infertility is a really lonely place, and it's a horrible situation to be in, but around you, life goes on. And other than you, you know, everybody else in your life, they have their own stuff going on. You are the most important to you, and only you. And that is really hard to remember. It's hard to swallow at the same time, and you never want to hear that, but it's true. So other people are going to be getting pregnant, and you are going to feel jealous, and you are going to want to say to them, it's not fair, why you, why not me, what did you do that I didn't do? You are going to want to say all this, but you can't. And you have to bear that in mind. No matter how hard it is, everybody else is still human, and everybody else has other lives, and you can't go around being a monster because you feel that way. So getting it all out and not upsetting people in the process is something that I would definitely recommend. I also think that you kind of have to try and see the positive. So one thing I kind of try and do now is, if I have got a pregnant friend or I know someone who is pregnant, I will ask questions. And I ask a lot of questions, but little questions about, oh, how did you decide this? And what are you going to be doing about this? And just things like that. I try not to really stick my oar in, but why is it every time I film she starts barking? You can only gain from their knowledge, and you can talk about things that they did and things, the way that they do it and what works for them, so that when you do have your child, hopefully, you don't feel completely on your own. All of these people are going to have all this experience and they are all going to be there to help you. And for me, that's brilliant, because I think, oh great, I've now got all these people that have children or have young children or have had children who can offer me advice and are going to be there to support me. And I try and manifest that jealousy turn it into positive and use that to my advantage rather than letting it bog me down all the time, because I spent so long being bogged down about this that I do not want to go back to that place. So for me now, it's right, well, okay, you're pregnant, that's annoying, but how can you help me? And it sounds really selfish, but it's the only way that I get through it. You look at all these people and you just take something from it. If it's not the nicest feeling for you, then make it educational. I'm not saying go buy a pram with them. I'm not saying be their birthing partner. I'm just saying that embrace the fact that you've got all these people that can help you. And when it does come to the best pram or the best cot or the sleeping routines, things like that, these are people who eventually are hopefully going to be those people who will step up and help you. So be there for them. There's no harm in doing that. You can still be a good friend. You just don't have to do it all the time. You know, say to that friend, if all they talk about is their pregnancy, then fine, but say to them, look, I'm really sorry, I know this is really exciting for you, but please do understand that this isn't happening for me and I feel quite sad about that. So do you mind, as much as I don't mind talking about your pregnancy, do you mind if we kind of talk about the things that we used to talk about? There's no harm in doing that, and I think that's a really... communication is key, and you have to be really honest with it. So I think, you know, use it to your advantage, ask questions, be there for them, be a good support system for them. You don't have to overdo it, and if it is too much, then you can kind of take back that control and just say, look, this is where I'm at with it. Do you mind? And again, if they're a good friend, they shouldn't mind. And if they do mind, then I think you need to pick your friends a bit better. My final thing when it comes to kind of coping with the jealousy is something that I wish I could have done, and that is trying a support group. I didn't know of any around where I live, and I couldn't find any no matter how much I looked. There were ones that were quite a drive away from me, and I didn't really want to drive all that way just to cry. But there are so many people. If you think 1 in 6 people struggle trying to get pregnant, that is so many people in this country, in the world, that are struggling. And you can all, as I said, for me, Instagram is my support group, and I talk to people left, right and centre that I would never have met in day-to-day life, and I gain so much from them. And I'm really, really grateful for having them in my life. So I do think a physical support group, if you have access to them, they are great. Even if you don't feel comfortable sitting there and telling everybody about your uterus, then you don't need to do that. You can go and you can just make friends who are in a similar situation to you, who, if you do need that release, they are there to talk to. And I really think these things are so beneficial. I went to an IVF retreat that was held by IVF Babel, and I met people there, and it was the first time I was in a room. I was so anxious going in, and I just, the first hour I was so nervous and it was horrible. But after that, after getting over that initial fear and somebody speaking to me, I gained so much from that, and I left that feeling like I'd been lifted a little bit and like I didn't feel so alone. So I really do recommend any kind of support group or any kind of event that you can go to where there are other people in your situation. It is so beneficial. It's something that I thought about kind of running with and setting up, but I'm not sure I'm there yet. I don't think I'm there just yet. But as I said, I think social media is one of the biggest, I don't even know what the word is, but I think it's excellent. I think it's so good to kind of meet people who are in the same situation as you, and I think it's really good to find comfort. And you know that you can go on Instagram and you can type in a hashtag of IVF support, IVF journey, infertility journey, all things like that, and it brings you up so many accounts. So as I said, I don't think I am ready to create a physical support group just yet. I think that is something that maybe I will look at in the future, but for now, as I said, I love Instagram and I think it's such a good support group for everyone. So everyone who watches this video, I want to share a photo and use the hashtag all things vagina. A friend actually that I made on Instagram said to me, you need to make that a hashtag, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to bite the bullet, just do it. Upload your pictures. If you are in this situation, just hashtag all things vagina, and you can search that hashtag and you can find other people who watch these videos who are in the same situation or a similar situation, or just understand how you feel a little bit, and you can talk to them. As honestly, I think the best friends that you have in life are the ones that you make on social media. So seriously, that is my mission. That is what I'm gonna do as of now. So hashtag all things vagina, and let's make a little community. Let's make a little, hashtag all things vagina, and let's make ourselves a little community, because I think support is the best thing to get you through this. And when you are feeling a bit jealous, and when your friend tells you that she's knocked up for the 3rd time on the pill and all the rest of it, you can message that friend and go, for fuck's sake, the fucking bitch. But then you can say to her, sorry about my language there, oh, that was really naughty. You can say that to your friend on social media. You can say that to somebody who's going to understand it. And you can say to your friend, I'm really happy for you. And then you can go cry, but that's it. That's what we're going to do. So everyone who watches these videos, please hashtag all things vagina. I will start all of my posts now. We're going to be all things vagina. So let's get this ball rolling. This is going to flop massively and I'm going to look like such a tool, but why not? Let's give it a go. Let's give it a go. So that's it from me today. I need to go. I'm going to be really late for work if I carry on chatting to you, but thank you so much for watching and coming back. Next week is episode 7. We are really quickly heading to that halfway mark. So join us next week, next Saturday. These are uploaded every Saturday, and I am now trying to upload a random video in the week. Do make sure that you like, comment, and please make sure that you subscribe. By doing that, you are really supporting my channel, and I really do appreciate that. And then make sure that you're following me on Instagram. But most of all, make sure that you are hashtagging your posts all things vagina, and I will see you next week. Thank you. Bye. What was that bye? I am so sorry. That was so high pitched that deafened me. I'm sorry. Goodbye.